Okay guys, so I found reasonably simple to use free nesting software. It's called OpenNest. I think it's based on Deep Nest converted for Grasshopper. So for Mark and for Justin, run the command package manager in Rhino 7 only, by the way. When package manager comes up, it'll show you all kinds of stuff you can install in Rhino. You can see in mine I've already installed OpenNest. For you, you go to online and you search for OpenNest like that. And when it comes up, you would highlight it and you would click install. I'm just going to pause because I knew was going to come in here when I start recording. Okay, so Manny sorted out now. So you'd highlight that, you click install. No, Manny not sorted out, coming back? No, okay. And you'd click install. And when you finished, you'd have new commands available in Grasshopper, as I now have here. All right, so you can use the Grasshopper script. I'm going to go through a little bit what it's doing and a little bit about what it needs. You'll see in the beginning of the Grasshopper script, I've got add polyline curves only. This script cannot nest. So in other words, a B is actually made from 3 curves. It doesn't see it as one item. It sees it's 3 separate curves, and it can only nest within a nest. So we want to nest all these characters, but within those, we don't want to treat the B as 3 separate curves. We want it as one item. So it can GUID lock items, but only if they're polyline. So before you start in Rhino, you've got to grab all your curves, highlight them together, go to the curve menu, you're going to go to convert, and you're going to convert to lines. I just use the default settings. I'm going to press escape now because I've done this once. If you put curves in here, curves, so I think Justin knows what I mean. Polyline, if you zoom it up, it's a bunch of very short lines, jig, 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 jig. It isn't a smooth curve. All right, so you must have polylines. Once you have the polylines, you grab them, you add them, so you grab all your polylines and you add your polylines here. So set multiple curves. You'll see it'll work for a minute, and then your curves will end up on the top there. Give it a second. This poor machine can't record and do stuff at the same time. It has a bit of a hard time. Okay, so there we did. Now normally if you're not recording at the same time as me, this happens pretty quickly. All right? So it then will grab all those items and nest them. So that's polyline curves going there. Your sheet that you want to cut from, so you decide what size sheet you can fit in the machine. It'll automatically add more sheets if you run out of space. So in other words, if there was too many curves, it would just keep going until it finds, it'll keep adding another sheet for the overflow. All right, so but your sheet curve, you highlight, you add it inside here, set one curve, and your sheet is added. Spacing is the spacing between the curves. So 0.25 millimeter. I think we can go a lot closer than that. I think we can go down to 0.1 because we know that the laser will cut to 0.08. So you've got a little bit of room inside there for the laser to work. Remembering the laser is going to cut on the very outside edge of this curve. Give that a second to catch up with us. And so now we've moved them a lot closer to each other, and you'll use up a lot less space. You'll see it tries to fit them in as close as it can. All right, remembering computers are dumb, so you can see what gaps over there, why didn't you put the eye there, etc. This is just helping get you there a little bit faster, right? Placement simply means there's 4 different ways to place, where number 4 is being squish it all up against this edge and the bottom edge, so working against this edge and this edge, and placement number 1 I think is everything along the bottom, so you want to cut them. You can experiment with that, play around with it a little bit. Tolerance, if you highlight it, it'll tell you. No, it doesn't. So I think the tolerance is how tightly when it's working with these curves, how close does it work before it detects that there's a problem. I've pretty much left on there, I don't have an issue. Rotations, you can see on 1, I'm allowing 1 rotation, which means that the direction that you put it in, it's going to stay in that direction. All right. If you went rotation to 2, it means that to make a better fit, it's allowed to rotate it 180. If you set rotations to 4, it would allow it to rotate to 90 degrees because there's 4 90 degrees and 360, and 8 would be 45 degrees. So if we take 8 for example, and just enter 8 and hit enter. Give it a bit of a second to think. Again, this is very CPU intensive, so the laptop I'm doing also does the same thing. So you can see that to try and make this fit a little bit closer, it's allowed some of the items to rotate to 45 degrees because we set rotations to 8. If you have more time or more powerful CPU, you may want to set, so this is the first result. So it'll iterate once, and this is the result you get. The more iterations you add, the more you're allowed to go, well, I've tried this once. Let's try it a second time and see if we get a better result, or third result, fourth result. By the time you get to, if you set iterations to 10, it'll come back with what used the least amount of space between those 10 iterations. So this is just if you have time, you would allow it to do that. All right, so it'll put those blocks inside there, and you'll see also that if you then change the size of your sheet, because it's live and it's Grasshopper, if you change the size of the sheet, it's going to recalculate the whole thing to try fit in that smaller amount of space. All right, and you can see that it's just moved everything to go there. So I'm going to make this smaller to show you what I meant by the sheet size. So if I make that sheet size smaller than what I've got space for characters, it'll automatically add its own second sheet inside there. There we go. Oh, so the reason you're not seeing the second sheet is I'm not showing it. So I'm just going to make another little curve parameter here. And just connect that to the sheet so you can see it. All right, so you can now see that it's generated a second sheet. So anything that didn't fit in the first sheet, it overflowed to a second sheet the same size. All right. I think your default parameters in here spacing, I guess, 0.15 to be safe. I'm going to change a few parameters and see. Oopsie, I'm the wrong thing in there. What? 0.15. Seem to be a little bit safe, remembering that our cutter tip is 0.08. So we've got enough in there to cut this item out. There's more advanced functions on this. I'm still busy reading through the documentation on it. But for now, I think at least there's a nesting tool. It's in Rhino where we're comfortable to work, and it gives us something to get us through there quickly. All right, thanks guys, cheers.